Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. Jerri, I love when we have a guest come back. And what's so interesting about this guest, he is a three-time author, maybe more, three-time author. So we are among royalty here. Very excited.
I can't think of a better time to have a book like this.
Oh, yeah.
In the world that we live in, it just seems totally appropriate and necessary, and we all could take some lessons from this. So, Glenn, welcome to the LinkedUp podcast. You're coming to us from your office in New Jersey?
Correct.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Louise, for having me. I'm coming to you live from Brigantine, New Jersey. Yes.
Yes. Are you back to school? You are probably. Are the teachers
Yes,
and
well,
students?
Now, the kids and teachers come back right before Labor Day this year because Labor Day falls a little bit later. But Jerri, as you know, the job is 12 months, so I don't really have a summer. You're looking at it.
It is. It is. And some people think that the summers are quiet, and I always had a hand in technology, and that's always we're doing more in the summer, getting ready for the new year. So it's never quiet, is it? Tell us, what are your three books for people that might not know the first two? And after you do that, tell us what prompted you to write this third book.
Yeah, the first book is Common to Chaos, Ancient Stoic Wisdom for Successful School Leadership. I co-authored that with Danny Bauer. Put that out about, I think 3 years ago now. And that's all about Stoicism and school leadership. The second one is I Won't Back Down, which is how educators can use rejection into something bigger and better. And in that particular book, I tie in each chapter with a musical artist that had been rejected in some particular way and how it propelled them to stardom. And, that was fun to read and write about and research about because there was a lot of historical artists that I loved and listened to as a child and coming up through the years and so forth. And then how I didn't realize there were struggles that they had that, are not so obvious to the public eye. And then the newest one was something I felt really had to get out, which was, and it's actually funny. This was the second book I wrote, but I released a third. Something I just kept tinkering with and so forth. So Unclench Your Fist, the leader's guide to making the hard call and surviving it. So I thought it was an appropriate even cover design as well. Jerri, you hit the nail on the head. The world is extremely angry. And as a leader in any profession, and that's why I wrote this book, it's not just for educators, it's for all leadership. And being a leader in today's day and age is not a particularly easy thing to do. So I wanted to basically help people realize that, there are historical figures throughout the years of history who went through similar things and how they can relate it to their job without clenching their fists so tight that they can never think or do anything rational and just doing it out of hate and spite instead. So opening it up, relaxing the brain a little bit, and becoming the leader that you need to be instead of the leader that you don't need to be.
I love that. That's so great because I feel like there's just this time where we react to things instead of responding to things. So just like you said, to give your brain the time to really process and then, make decisions based on many things, variety of stakeholders or, what's really good instead of that reaction. What are some of the tips that you give? Well, first of all, actually, who are some of the people that you highlight in there, historical figures?
Yeah, no problem. So the first chapter is Theodore Roosevelt. Second chapter is Winston Churchill. I have Machiavellian here. I have FDR. I have Cincinnatus, George Washington. Let's see, who else do I have in here? Warren Bennis. I have a couple of different generals as well throughout the years. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and so forth. So Napoleon, I could go on and on and on. Shackleton, if you've ever learned about him before. So Horatio, Vice Admiral Nelson, who lost an eye, who talks about the turning a blind eye and so forth. And, all these little mythological things that came out from history from them and so forth. But, to Jamie, to your question, like Churchill led England and helped revolutionize the front against the Nazis and so forth in Europe. And he was constantly always on, but he's also known for, taking naps during the middle of the day. And, people are like, how are you able to do that as a leader? And I love the one chapter I put together in regards to him, if it's about performance leadership. And I think we have a lot of people right now that feel like they have to perform more than they actually do. So, the two questions I ask in regard to how Churchill would take a nap during the day. I'm not saying you can take a nap during the day, but I'm saying you have to
take a nap at school, Glenn.
You have to strategize. I do try to sneak into the pre-K rooms and sleep on one of the cots, but you have to strategize your energy. And the questions that I pose in here, am I doing this mission? I'm sorry, am I doing this for the mission? Or am I doing this for the people to see me? And also, am I focused on getting better, or am I focused on creating more anxiety for myself? Right. And a lot of times I feel like people are constantly just trying to show, instead of actually working on themselves for the actual mission. Right. So, something to think about there is the world is constantly demanding that you're visible and you're transparent. Right. So when you are doing those things, are you actually doing meaningful things to continue to make your leadership and your people better? Or are you just doing it for a song and dance to say, look at me and boost your ego a little bit?
And sometimes, we can take a note from Churchill. Sometimes you just need a darn in the middle of the day.
Absolutely.
Just exhausted. And you have to listen to your body once in a while and take a time out, I think. It's important. Yeah. Yes. So, as you wrote the book, did you have a favorite story?
Each one of them, I'm a history guy, so each one of them meant something to me in that regard. I always love Ernest Shackleton when you talk about him, how, basically 497 days led an expedition, and no one got lost in the mix of it. No one died. To do that is simply surreal. Right. I love the Battle of Copenhagen with Horatio Nelson, where it talks about turning a blind eye to a signal. So, we know this coming up through the ranks and so forth, but there are sometimes where there are people that play it too safe. If you are to listen to HR all the time or to lawyers all the time, they're there to advise you, but you have to make a decision as a leader. And sometimes, I'm not saying you do it as an egotistical thing or just go totally blind. But Horatio Nelson in the Battle of Copenhagen, this is the same guy that, pushed Napoleon back at times and kept him in the land instead of the sea. He basically was getting orders from his admiral to retreat and to turn back. And he's like, look, you're way over there as you're signaling this. You're not in the thick of it. I can see it differently in the trenches here. I'm going to, go forward. So what he does is supposedly this is where it comes from. He puts his telescope into his blind eye. He lost an eye in battle throughout the years, also lost an arm and a leg, puts it into his blind eye and says, I don't see the signal. And that's where it comes from that. So, how many times did you two through the ranks have to make a call that maybe wasn't the call that your superior was asking you to, but you did something bigger and better because you were in the thick of it. So it's thinking about that. I enjoy that. And then the one that I really enjoy the most is what I lead off with, which is Ulysses S. Grant and the wolves story when he's in the Mexican-American War. And I equate this to like the hooting and hollering of wolves. We as public figures, whether you have stakeholders, you have a community, think of your emails. One person writes back on a reply all, and then all of a sudden you think the whole world is revolting against you. Or you have one or two people at a board meeting to say something and you think the whole community is against you. So this premise of this story is when he's in the Mexican-American War, he's down in Texas going from one base to another. He's a young private, and this Lieutenant Benjamin's from Indiana. And they're hearing these hooting and hollerings of the wolves. Now, Jamie, you're out in Midwest. Jerri, you're out in Midwest. So you know the high prairie grass and so forth. So these wolves are hiding in the prairie grass. And Lieutenant Benjamin says to him, how many wolves do you think there truly are? And Ulysses S. Grant puts it into his memoirs that had he asked him to turn around, he would have said yes. Like he was petrified of these wolves. So he's, trying to sound confident, and he says 20, because they're just screaming like there's no other. So he thinks there's 20 plus wolves out there that are going to basically devour them on their trail walk from one base to another. And they go up a little bit further, and it turns out there's only 2. And there was 2 wolves sitting up on the rocks. And as they passed by, they were quiet. And Ulysses S. Grant used that for the rest of his time, going through leadership as a general, working his way up to general, and then presidency, where he basically said, there is a lot of hooting and hollering, until it's time to be counted. And then you see who truly shows up. And I think about that a lot from a leadership perspective, where you might lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling going, did I make the worst decision possible, when I know I had to make this decision and I know I'm upsetting people. But, the wolves are screaming in your head,
Yes.
or like I said at the meeting or an email, you think that these 2 or 3 represent the whole 100% that represent, where they're coming from. So, diving into that and finding out who are the real wolves versus the false ideology that you have going on in your head. So things like that try to keep me grounded at times when my own imagination goes wild on my my head.
That's a wonderful story. And as I read your book, I kept thinking, I wish I would have had this when I was a superintendent, just to know that other people went through these tough times and had these feelings. But as a side note, I have to tell you, I grew up with a pet coyote. So I know the ruckus that little coyote can make. I would have probably said less wolves than 20 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Lieutenant Benjamin was from Indiana, so he was used to wolves. So you Midwesterners, you got your animals out there.
We've got our animals. Yes.
I love it. I love it. I love the lessons learned from history. I love how you apply it through a leadership lens. You mentioned, I think this is so interesting, that you started this book, but then the other one kind of led the way instead. So your second book, your third book was supposed to be your second, and you reversed it.
Correct.
Well, what was it that you say you were tinkering with this one that delayed it, that kind of put a pause on it?
I had too many chapters. I was just going down the rabbit hole too many times with too many different historical figures, and I was trying to tie it in. I didn't know how to bring it all together.
Okay.
And I think the writing of the other book helped project that for the third book, if you kind of follow what I'm saying. It made me realize that I needed to break it down into almost like categories. So in their third book was like, all right, you wrote all these stories about different historical people, but how do they fall in line? Like, how does the reader follow that? And that was something I was really struggling with. And also, as you two know from book writing, you got to decide what doesn't go in the book. And you got to decide what to edit and take out. But for me, I tried to break it down from like the 3 parts. So I put the chapters into 3 different parts of this book. The first one is the internal grip, which is facing yourself. The second one is the opening hand, making the move. And then the third one is the enduring grasp, surviving the aftermath. So clenching to releasing and to, oh boy, you made these decisions. Now you got to live with it. And how are you going to survive that? So
brilliant.
That was the time that I needed to put together those chapters to maybe relate more to a leader.
Yeah.
So when you're analyzing yourself and reflecting, and or you're going to make the move, and or, all right, you made the move, and now, good luck, and I start the book off with chapter 1, besides the introduction and so forth. But in chapter 1, I talk about, in the introduction, I talk about a quote that I love from, and I'll quote football here, Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart is the football coach right now for the University of Georgia Bulldogs. And with that being said, his quote is this, and it's always hits home to me every time I see it and hear it. You will have to make hard decisions that negatively affect people you care about.
Yeah.
You'll be disliked despite your best attempt to do the best for most, and you will be misunderstood, and you won't always have the opportunity to defend yourself.
Yes.
We're true.
How true.
You know, and I think
true.
about that a lot in the different decisions and so forth.
You
That,
have
you
to
know,
be. Yeah, leadership.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love how your book is meant to have people be reflective, right? And metacognitive. And yet that's really how you got the book to where it is now, is spending that time yourself being reflective and metacognitive. I think and also what's so great about it is you're obviously very passionate about history. I never had that. So I think that reading this book, I will really love through your lens of history, the excitement that you're bringing forward with it. So, because you're very passionate about history. And I love how you pull it in, because this is the second book. Well, actually all books have some level of history built into it. So that's terrific. True educator.
And I think one of the things that resonates with me most is that these tales are timeless. It doesn't matter when they happen. These are the same struggles that we go through as humans today that they were going through, let's say, in the Civil War. I was watching last night Michael Beschloss, that is the historian, talking about Abe Lincoln and talking about everything that he went through, like he and his father didn't get along, you know, and all of the things that you just never knew that he was having to deal with, as well as dealing with the country at that time. So it is, in a way, kind of comforting to know that these people that we hold in such high esteem had to go through the same kind of struggles we go through today. And you know, I guess misery loves company a little bit, right?
Wow.
Yeah, you know, it's unique you mentioned that. In chapter 3, I labeled the title "Embrace the Bad Reputation," and you know, so unfortunately that does come. You know, so in that particular chapter, I do talk about Lincoln. You know, in regard to that. So just a couple different things to think about the burden. So like we look at Lincoln now, like you said, on the History Channel or wherever it may be, or down in DC at the monument and so forth. Lincoln is one of the greatest presidents of all time. And, you know, there's so many amazing quotes about him, but he also struggled, like you said, his father didn't believe in the reading, didn't believe in the things he was going to do. He failed how many times? He struggled with melancholy, depression, and so forth. Yeah. And everything he did, you know, became disliked. So like when Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, I'm just reading this off this chapter right here. He was attacked not only by the South, but many in the North. They viewed it as radical, unconstitutional, and dangerous overreach. Many suspended habeas corpus to detain Confederate sympathizers. He's called a tyrant and a dictator. When he fired the looked-apart general that most of the troops loved, George McClellan, you know, the troops didn't like him. They were upset about him. And then, well, they mocked him for his appearance. They called him, the grotesque baboon or the original gorilla. Like, you have to understand something. He had to be snuck into D.C. at times because they were afraid that people were going to do something to him. And eventually they did, unfortunately. But, you know, Lincoln had to make all these choices. And at the end of the day, he was okay with maintaining that bad reputation in some people's eyes because he knew it was for the greater good.
Permission.
About that, he had to make countless decisions that he knew would be scrutinized by all sides, but yet he looked at it from the side of humanity and what humanity needed most in this country. Yeah. And that's a tough lift, you know, and that's why he's one of the greatest presidents or greatest leaders of all time in this world.
Yes, and it's that compass that he could look to and know that the decision was where his compass led him. And it's hard, I think, as leaders to develop that because, like you said, it can be so much about showmanship anymore,
Yes.
not leadership. And that makes things tougher for people. Yes.
Yeah.
I just loved reading the book. There are so many great stories, and I love how we can just apply them, and it makes you think deeply about history, makes you think deeply about yourself and why you are in a leadership role. Like you said, I think it's for leaders at all levels. Moms and dads have to make decisions that are not light. It's just, it doesn't matter what level you are in, you have to make these decisions. And so it's a great book to get you to reflect and think.
I can't wait to get it for my husband, actually. Read it together.
He will love it. He will love it.
He will, because he's a history fanatic as well. So he'll love
Well,
it.
the beautiful thing about this is I tried to not to make it like a true history book too. So
Right.
it's not
Right.
watered down. Like I love reading history, but there are some parts that are just too dry and
Too dull, yeah.
So that's
Sounds
why,
like-
the book is just around 100 pages, and it makes it a quick, easy read for people to research and understand better. And Jamie, to your point, like each chapter has reflection questions on there.
Oh, great.
For those questions. So it's almost like a little case study in a way for you or
That's
your
so
team.
great.
And then each chapter also has like a defining moment, that they can relate to, that more,
Right.
to something that relates to him. Like Steve Jobs, like when he rolled out the iPad, everybody's like, where's the buttons? Where's the USB? Where's the keyboard? And he was scrutinized, and he just knew with a vision what he needed to do. So between him and Netflix and everybody else, I tie those companies into here as well to showcase them, how they had to make a decision that they had the vision for it instead of, listening to the naysayers.
Stay true
That's
to
right.
the
And
vision.
as leaders, we are often taught to listen to the people, listen to the people. And sometimes that is true. If you are a transformational leader, you're going to have to do things that the people don't even see yet or know that they need yet. So that makes it extremely difficult to be a leader in that kind of a role, for sure. Well, Glenn, where can we get your book?
You can get it at Barnes & Nobles or Amazon.
Okay. All right. And if a district wanted to do a book study or somebody wanted to do a leadership, can they call on you? Do you talk about your book?
Yeah, they can go to my full name, glennrobbins.com. You can just put in the information that you're looking for. And yeah, I can work with them virtually or go out to them, whatever it may be. But it's a book not just for educators, it's for all leadership and people that have to deal with it. I even have Roosevelt in here about, just finding the strength in the arena, where we've heard the man in the arena speech before. Brene Brown mentioned that as well. So there's a lot of people going through it, and how do they continue to persevere and find a way forward in today's day and age when it wants to make you angry. And I had a couple quotes in there talking about like you're holding on so tight that you're going to end up hurting the people that didn't hurt you, if you keep squeezing too hard.
Yes. Yes. So we all need to unclench our fist, take a breath, and think about the future and what we're really here for. Yes. Well, thank you, Glenn. It's been such a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, ladies. I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.